I think the main issue I'd like to cover is the high-sided vehicles, but I will just tell you what my portfolio covers. You may have some sympathy with me at the end. It's about £70 million, the responsibility. It's everything to do with highways, major repairs, potholes, all the things that irritate you. Flooding, I don't think it's a big problem here, but certainly there are some parts of the county around Malmesbury that have severe flooding problems sometimes, so we're trying to fix those. And we work with the Environment Agency and the water authorities jointly to try and get these problems solved. And then we've had problems in Salisbury in the past. I think this is really where the chalk and cheese comes from. In the north, when it pours with rain, you get flash floods. In Salisbury, it goes straight into the ground and affects the water table. And we have to keep a close eye on that to make sure that we're well prepared should flooding occur. I've also got the poison chalice of car parking. Not such a big problem here because we're in the process of handing over the car park outside here to the town council. More controversial in other places. Speeding, we do what we can to prevent speeding. Have a speed watch introduced to assist with that, and I believe there's a speed watch group here. Am I correct in saying that? So that's a really great initiative. I tried to do that about 10 years ago when I was first a councillor, and the chief constable wasn't interested in it. They were concerned that motorists would thump people standing beside the road if they got caught. And in fact, it's worked very well with the police. The new chief constable is much more receptive to it, and that's been running for about 2 years very successfully. Just for your interest, we also have something called Lorry Watch, where overweight vehicles go to places where they shouldn't, where there's a weight restriction. And in Bradford-on-Avon, there's a particular problem with the bridge over the Avon. And we've had volunteers monitoring vehicles going across the bridge, and we've just had our first prosecution on that. So this is a great example of the way that we can work with volunteers and the communities to address some of these sticky issues. There are various other smaller parts of my job, markets. We've got a couple of cemeteries that I'm responsible for. I didn't discover that until I had about 2 years in the job. And public toilets, which we're handing over, I believe, here. Is that correct? Handed over very well, and that's something, again, we're trying to delegate out to the towns and parishes because they can do the job better than us. The consultation was a delegated decision. It started on the 17th of February with a return date on the 5th of April. We made this longer than the normal consultation period, so the area boards had time to respond. They only meet every 2 months. The information on the consultation went to all councillors and to all area board managers, and we encouraged the area board managers to send these documents out to anybody who might be interested. I delayed the decision to allow further traffic count to be taking place on the A342 at Nursteed Road, as this was delayed again because the first traffic count failed, and therefore I delayed the timescale for the completion of the report until it was repaired and we had proper count at Nursteed Road. The consultation consists of 2 documents. There's a report by our consultant dated November 2010, and there was an internally prepared report, September 2011. There was a third report on the potential lowering of the bridge at the Chocolate Poodle. When I told my wife there was a place called the Chocolate Poodle, she wouldn't believe me. But nevertheless, we had a report to see whether we could lower that bridge. I've just covered the first 2 reports. The consultant's report, it was by Wiltshire, who was our term consultant at that time. There were real problems with that because we were very concerned about the way that they had measured, or not measured, that they had calculated the number of overhang vehicles that were using the Great Cheverel diversion. And it just seemed to be absolutely incorrect. So that was the first thing that we were suspicious with on the report. But they calculated that the number of overheight vehicles going through Great Cheverel was 51 a day. And that just, we talked to the parish council and other people, it just didn't seem to be true. As a result, we prepared an internal report, and this was David Thomas, who isn't here. And again, the assessment just confirmed that 51 was incorrect. What the consultant had done was taken some national statistics and applied it to Great Cheverel. So we then did a physical survey, and we put a laser device above the road, so we could actually measure how many overheight vehicles were going through Great Cheverel, and it turned out to be 5 a day. And that really said that the consultant's report was pretty flawed. The second concern of the report was about a bridge at the Clock. I don't know if you know this bridge, but it's just outside Devizes. And the consultant's report said that a more detailed review of the geometry of a two-way traffic closure should be carried out, but they didn't give a reason why. I don't know whether they were touting for what, but anyway, they made this suggestion, and they didn't give a clear reason why this work should be done. We then looked at it, and there had been no recorded personal injury collisions involving HGVs at that bridge for 10 years. So even with an additional 51 HGVs a day, which is about a 15% increase, there's no case for assessing the bridge. And with 5 a day, it's just ridiculous to do that assessment. The forward visibility on that bridge both ways is very good, and oncoming traffic can be seen very clearly, and there's sufficient signage to warn the drivers that the road narrows. So the conclusion was that there was no necessity to do any special work on that bridge. So really the consultant's report we had, to my mind, wasn't viable. So then we did the work ourselves, and there was a second report in the consultation document that was based on 5 a day. The other easy way of resolving this overheight problem in Great Cheverel is actually to lower the bridge of the Chocolate Poodle. And the estimate in the consultant's report, this would be nearly £1 million. And the main costs associated with a diversion of the fibre optic link. And the report suggested there should be a fully itemised estimate should be obtained. This wasn't done because we couldn't justify spending such a huge sum on one bridge. And that is about half of the discretionary budget that I have for new crossings, for all the things that come through the area boards here. And we just couldn't justify spending half a year's money on one bridge. And we also had somebody who is on West Lavington Parish Council, who was an expert on these matters, and he said he would come and give us some advice as well. And he'd worked with BT fibre optic cables, and he came to the same conclusion as well. So the cost of lowering that bridge, not lowering the bridge, lowering the carriageway under the bridge was unacceptably high, and therefore that was written off. So that is just the background to why there were 2 reports in the consultation document, and the reason why we rejected the lowering of the Chocolate Poodle Bridge carriageway. So the final document, with the results of the consultation, was issued on the 20th of August, and it included an additional traffic count that's summarised on this slide, I think. I don't know if you can see that, but essentially I'd had lots of people saying to me there's a lot more HGV traffic on the road since you put in the diversion signs. And I said, well, I don't know if there is or not. So then we decided to put this count in, and you can see that the number of HGVs, this is on the same position, on the same road, and there's 2 years difference on those. The one on the left is June 2010, the one on the right is 2012. And the number of HGVs on that road It was 326 2 years ago, and it was 305 when we did it in June of this year. So that said, that although people thought there were more HGVs on the road, well, figures speak for themselves. The other thing that was being said was that there was a sign put up on the splitter island at the town end of Nursteed Road, and it was ambiguous because it showed vehicles going to the left, but it didn't say anything about a low bridge. And so there was concern that we were diverting all the HGVs down through Russell, or down down the diversion. So even with a sign that wasn't clear, the number of HGVs, it's gone, the number of HGVs hadn't increased. There were a number of questions that were raised during the consultation and subsequently, and I'd like to just go through those before answering any questions. The first one was there were concerns that the signs were erected without consultation, and the answer in the report is that the signs erected in Devizes are advisory signs, and as such there is no requirement for the Highways Authority to consult on their provision, and the signs were installed on a trial basis. So normally things would come to me for a decision. This is something that's within the officer's gift, and this is something they decided to do. There were concerns that the signs and Devizes were provided against the recommendations in the technical report. Well, I've already been through that. The initial report said 51 vehicles, and then it had this great scheme for 40 signs almost going north of Devizes, and it was just a ridiculous scheme because it was based on 51 vehicles, which was totally wrong. And so we considered it to be excessive, and that's why we didn't go ahead with that scheme. The concern that the signs were erected when the recommendations of the report stated that diversion should not be pursued, concern that a number of the recommendations in the two technical reports have been ignored. Well, I've explained why the recommendations in the first report were ignored, and there were other issues on the second one. The decision to install the signs was taken before the results of the second report. The overheight HGV review, that's the name of the report. The decision to install the signs was taken by the then head of traffic and network management and was seen as a low-cost, low-impact way of dealing with the concerns raised by a great Chevron community. There were concerns that the Wiltshire strategy documents for the A345 were ignored, and the A342 is not a designated freight route in Wiltshire. The answer is the Wiltshire freight strategy identifies the A342 as a local freight route. The A345 is not identified either as a strategic or local freight route, but can be used as an access freight route. There are no restrictions on the size of vehicle that can be used on that road, and the details can be found on our website. Concerned that the signs encourage all vehicles, all HGVs, to use the A342, well, I've covered that. There were concerns about the school in Nursteed Road and the primary school, and if we put more HGVs down the road, then the primary school would be putting children at risk. Well, there's an underpass there, so the children use that, and so the children are not at risk. And also there is agreement in place with the developer to put a crossing there, and that will be put in once we have extracted the money from them. So that issue is being addressed. There's a question about why the Martin Lavington Broadway local diversion was not included in the consultation document. And the report said the option would be consulted upon if it was decided that the advisory signs in Devizes would be removed and overheight HGVs returned to the 360. You're pleased to know I'm very near to the end. The suggestion of lowering the road under the railway bridge, the chocolate poodle, I've covered that. There are a whole lot of other questions I could go through, but they were from Mr. Gale at Russell Parish Council, but I shall pause there.